I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom, you're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support. Hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFO. My name's Luis Jimenez. Before we get started, of course, I want to say thank you to the sponsor, BlueMarlinChronicles.com, purveyors of the world's finest fishing tackle since 1995, and also want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the music that you hear on the show. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. With all of that out of the way, of course, check out the Patreon, hit the like, hit the share, subscribe if you haven't already. We've got all the links for everybody who's on the show down below, which, by the way, speaking of, before we get to today's other guests, this is driving me crazy. I had to straighten it out. All right. We've got some fun guests. I see Dave Hiss is here. That's good. Making me excited. I was worried. Let's get started, shall we? So today we have two co-hosts. Rather is out today. He'll be back on Wednesday, regular scheduled. He's still on vacation. Mike, as you guys know, will be back Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. We've got a very cool announcement today. I'm going to save it for the end of the show. But before we do all of that, let's introduce our guests. I think everybody knows this lady in the UAP community. She's pretty popular, and she's a friend of the show. Very articulate lady. I love her to death. Without further ado, Miss Christina Gomez. How are you?
Hey, Luis. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you for being here. Are you excited to co-host today?
Oh my goodness, I'm ready. Let's do it right here, right now.
Excellent. Let's do it. And then we've of course got another co-host. So let's introduce him, shall we?
Please.
Yeah. All right. So Daniel Miller, if you guys don't know, PsychOp on Twitter. He's a really articulate dude, one of my favorite guys to talk to on the topic. Without further ado, Mr. Daniel Miller.
Hello.
What's shaking, buddy?
Just grooving to the DOS tapes, you know? How about you guys? Dressed for the role of co-host.
Dressed for the role,
I had to represent.
Got the tie on, looking good.
Gotta get the tie.
I like it. Well, you guys, look, this. You know what? I got to do some sound design here on this pre-tape that I got, because this tune always comes in louder. Not that I care, because this is one of my favorite DOS Tapes tunes. Look at this, Singularity Mike.
Hey,
he can listen, but he can't be here. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Playing in the background, he's working.
Happy you're here. Okay, guys, so we've got an interesting show. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We do have a guest today. I see David is in the back, but I don't see that his camera's on. Let's bring him in and see what happens. David Hiss, I got a loading bar. Hello, can you hear us? All right, nothing yet from David Hiss. Let's see what's happening. I'm gonna email him here. Okay, so there's a couple things I wanted to talk about. David was going to come on. He was going to talk about a few things, primarily sort of detection of UAP and his work with WSMR and other. He worked at a New Mexico facility. He's got a lot of experience with government and DoD, and worked in tech for over 30 years. He emailed me. He has some pretty interesting things to say in this email. And I figured, hey, let's bring him on and talk to him. And truth be told, I thought he was Dave from UAPX at first. Full disclosure, but when his email shows up in my inbox, it's UAP, not UAPX. So at first I thought he was with UAPX. I had a moment of dyslexia and I swapped that around. So sorry if you guys thought Dave was part of UAPX. He's not. And I made that announcement last week. I was like, yeah, we're going to have a UAPX week next week because McGowan's coming in on Friday. Anyway, okay, I think David's here. Let's see. Hopefully his connection is holding up. I don't see a picture on his face yet, so I'll wait for him. Once I see his face, we'll bring him in. Okay, so until Dave gets here, let's go ahead and discuss some things that happened while I was gone. I've had the last week off. Not really. You know, I ended up doing 2 shows last week. But special like button. Thank you, Mike. And by the way, thanks for everybody being here. Tima Tomaszewski, Ben, UFO Blueprint, all you guys. Now I become death. Oh, look at this. Somebody we know is here. Christina Gomez, thank you. Matthew Riot, Zero Cool, all you guys. Thank you so damn much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It does wonders. Okay, so let's talk about, I guess, until Dave gets here, this political article. I'll share the screen right now so everybody sees what I'm talking about. This was some really big news that happened over the week, and I think Brian Bender posted this article on, was it Friday night or Saturday morning? I can't remember. The 25th. Today's the 27th. So yeah, it was Saturday, right? Am I right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so the title of the article, a lack of focus, lawmaker on the mission to compel Pentagon to take UFOs seriously. This was a killer article. Basically, a congressman out of, I think it was New Mexico, right? Representative Ruben Gallego from Arizona. He lived in New Mexico. In New Mexico for a little bit. And he's out of Arizona. He's a congressman. He was the one really pushing S-2150, is it? The bill, or is it 2610, S-2610, the Senate bill, or excuse me, the House Resolution Bill 4350. Yes. Okay, so basically I've written down a couple of quotes that we could talk about, but I guess I want to get your guys' sort of opinion on this before we start getting into some quotes. What did you guys, Christina, let's start with you. What did you think of what Representative Gallego said?
So I also wrote down a quote that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah,
and it says here, a hearing without a real understanding of what's happening, without real data, is not going to do any good for anybody. And I think the stance that he's taken as a congressman is incredibly wise. Of course, he really can't say anything without having viable information to back him up. Otherwise, nothing's going to work out for him. And, Senator Harry Reid seemed to be like quite the force working for many serious treatment of the UFO mystery as it would affect the national defense. Okay, like we know that he was kind of one of the first people in Congress that was really pushing it, right, before he retired. Now we have this new representative, Gallego. Am I saying it right?
Yep.
Gallego, yeah. Stepping in with even a louder voice, pushing these things forward. And, I'm incredibly glad about it. And I think with everything that's happening, it's very possible that maybe he did watch the big phone home. But we need more to get behind this topic, just like he is. We need more information. We need more high-end people like he is as well, because like the saying goes, there's strength in numbers. Right. The more people that talk about it, the better it is for everyone, regardless if it's the president of the United States or your average Joe that's your neighbor.
Right. I don't think he watched the big phone home, but I can assure you he was definitely contacted through Twitter. I mean, we definitely sent his subcommittee. He's on the, I believe, the House Armed Services Subcommittee, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, on intelligence and special operations.
On intelligence and special operations. Thank you. And we live tweeted that committee during the big phone home, and that tweet was retweeted, quote tweeted easily 80 to 100 times. So it for sure showed up in his feed. There's no doubt in my mind about
he
that.
mentions Twitter in the article. So.
He does. And yeah, actually that was, I mean, since we're talking about it, let's read the tweet or his quote. Okay, I'll start here. He says, quote, "I don't think we have enough information to be honest for us to know whether we should be worried or not." He said, "That's why I'm structurally trying to put this together so we can actually collect data and treat this like a scientific military objective rather than some kooky conspiracy theorists. The next step he's considering is to hold public hearings. Quote, "I've definitely thought about hearings," he said, "but first there needs to be more data collected and shared." I think that should have been underlined, shared. A hearing without a hearing without real understanding of what's happening, real data, is not going to do any good for anybody, Gallego said. Quote, "Maybe it's time for maybe for the Twitter world so they could talk about it, but that's not our job. Our job is not to be entertainers. Our job is to create solutions where there's a problem, and we don't even know if we have a real problem until we actually collect data." So I think, I mean, that kind of like that was when I read that, I'm like, oh, maybe he did see his Twitter feed and saw that people were asking for public hearings. But I guess in his opinion, and maybe this is where we could disagree. And I see David Hiss it looks like he's got a good connection. Let's see, Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Lewis. How about yourself?
Doing good. Okay, you're coming in crystal clear. All right, I was worried there for a hot second. We'll get to you in a moment, Dave. Sorry for the awkward introduction, but I just wanted to make sure we can hear and see you. So we're talking about this political article. I think I sent you the link, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think we're talking about Representative Gallego and how Twitter would, of course, love to see public hearings, and that's what we were pushing for during the Big Phone Home. But in his opinion, there's not enough data, and there's not enough shared data specifically that has been collected and given to Congress. And he doesn't want to do public hearings just to satisfy us on Twitter, which is cool. I get that. But where I disagree is I think data's been collected for 7 decades on this topic. I think the data's there, is just, can you demand that data? And that's what HR 4350 is doing, is that it's demanding backlog data so that they can look at it and intelligently come to a conclusion. And that's, I'm sure if it was up to him, he probably would forego that and maybe even agree with, yeah, there's enough data, but they have to go through the process of actually collecting the data, presenting that data to newer members of Congress that are not familiar or hip to the UAP game, and then sort of fight or at least call for public hearings. So Daniel, what do you think about that?
Oh, first, I mean, kudos to him for just going out there and saying it and doing it. You know, he references how, you know, maybe some people will think I'm a kook, or I'm paraphrasing his quote, but, you know, that's my burden to take on that, to help our service members. And I think he's right. I think that's what every congressperson should do, because clearly the pilots are seeing something.
Yep.
It took all of this last 3 years to finally change the reporting guidelines. I think it's ridiculous that you have pilots seeing something that could be a danger to them and they're scared to say something. That shouldn't be a situation they're ever in. So good on him for doing that. And good on him for sponsoring that bill language, because that hopefully, fingers crossed, makes a big deal. The only gripe I have about his hearings thing is I think he had to say that, and I think that's the right thing to say right now. However, just based on Brian Bender's prior reporting, he mentions that the UAP task force was being stonewalled and that they were not able to get information that they were requesting. So it really depends what this new permanent entity is going to be. Who's going to be in charge? Is it going to be someone the same rank as a task force, or is it going to be, like I think Mellon said in that article too, it needs to be like a 4-star general? It needs to be someone that when they say jump, everyone's be like, how high? It needs to be someone where when they ask information, they're given it. Because if it's just another entity where they're asking information but they're not getting it, then you're kind of in this chicken or the egg situation where they're saying, well, we can't have hearings until we have the data. But then the entity's like, yeah, but we can't get the data. So there's just this kind of awkward impasse. So,
well, the beautiful thing is, I feel like the difference is though now is that through this bill, there's going to be a permanent office put in place, and they're going to get at least one report a year, maybe up to 4. Hopefully, preferably 4, because I think that'll just keep it fresh in the minds of congressmen. Every quarter they get a report, you know, or it's in the news stream and it just constantly reminds them, oh, I got to look at this. Oh, I got to look at this. Oh, wow. What's in this? You know, kind of thing. Thank you so much for the $5 donation, bottled water. He says, put me in charge and there will be weekly leaks to the media. I think that's why you're not in charge, but appreciate the thought. Dave, I'd like to get your opinion on this, but I do have that quote that you're talking about, because the congressman did say, the congressman said he is not personally too worried about the potential political fallout of being associated with an issue that has long been on the fringe. Quote, look, I'm from Arizona. I lived in New Mexico a bit, very far away from Roswell, but still. Gallego quipped, referring to one of the most legendary locations of a purported alien crash in UFO lore. Part of my job is to diminish the stigma of talking about this, especially for military personnel to talk about it. If it means I have to take it on the chin a little bit, so be it. So like the political stigma is starting to crumble on this, to a point where he's like, I don't care. Like, people want to know. And I'm sort of willing to put myself out there to see if we can get some answers. Dave, what are your thoughts on that? You're muted, bud.
Sorry, Lewis.
No, you're good.
I'm highly technically skilled, so I have a lot of technical problems.
Yeah. No worries.
And I have, I'm here visiting my folks right now, so I actually have them trying to watch while this is happening.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see. Oh, hi, Mom and Dad. Well, I hope you're Dave.
You know the story. It's awesome.
Awesome.
So yeah, first of all, Representative Gallego. Yeah, if you want to make friends with him, probably it would help to get him.
That's true. I did email and tweet at him, private message him. So let's see what happens. Thankfully, pronunciations don't happen in writing.
No worries.
If you are watching,
I'm from the area.
Representative Gallego.
Yeah, I'm from the area, so I know a little bit about that pronunciation. And yeah, he's from what I understood from the article and the gist that he was, pointing towards. I tend to parse things a little differently than most people because of my experience and technical background. So what I read into that was that he was very much interested in creating some standardized reporting and data collection, because we talk a lot about analyzing this situation, but what I think we fail to realize is how the government machinery behind things works. And government likes very standardized stuff. When you're doing analytics on data sets, it needs to all fit in a mold that they can then apply formulas to and mine for data. And what we lack with respect to the UAP information right now is any standardized form of reporting. The military's big on that sort of thing. They have things that are called like sit reps and 9 lines and all these different ways to standardize the reporting of information. So they're looking for that sort of information in that format. And right now, the way that the information's coming in is very hard to analyze. It's ambiguous. There's not a lot of data to analyze. You could group it into shapes or characteristics, the sorts of things that we've seen Lou Elizondo talk about with the 5 observables. So those are attempts to classify and start analytics on groups of data. But until they develop a standardized methodology for collecting this information, then we're just going to have to take what comes in and kind of run it through some sifters to get the data points that we can use for analysis. So it's not magic. There just needs to be a system that the Congress or the government approves to start collection of this data in a standardized way. That's kind of what I read into the report.
I'm curious if I'm just opinion here, but do you think that there's a standardized way to collect data in any part of our government on this topic?
Absolutely, yeah.
That they can just adopt and apply to this new office?
Yeah, I mean, the government, and specifically the military defense, is well equipped to study things that are new, right? Like, hey, this thing popped up. That's kind of their job, is to look for things that they haven't seen before and assess them. So there's hundreds of methodologies that they have and can apply to this. None of it's very secret or mysterious. It's, you go in and take a statistics class and look at, some data analytics stuff. It's not rocket science. It is in a sense, but not, it's not that complex. Right. So, what I'm thinking about is the types of data that could be collected and analyzed. And that's kind of where the challenge comes in, because if you look historically at the efforts the government's made to assess this stuff, it's not insignificant. This is very much kind of a rehash of what happened in the 60s and in the 50s. And I think that people aren't very aware of how much effort outside of the blue book type stuff was put into researching these issues. It was taken quite seriously for a long time. And they tried to apply standardized methods and different ways of capturing data. The sensors they had back then probably aren't as good as what we have now. So maybe they feel like another stab at it would be productive. With
so we have two $5. Wait, do I hear an echo? I think that's you, Dave.
It could be.
All right, no worries. Okay, so Pat Calabria asks, Lou, did or does John Podesta know anything, or was it bull? I don't know if John Podesta knows anything, but I know John Podesta for sure, tried to get things.
WikiLeaks shows it.
Yeah, WikiLeaks shows it. His name is all over those documents. He was in contact with not only Hillary Clinton, but I think there was one email where it was Hillary Clinton, Tom DeLonge, and John Podesta. So I don't know. I can't speak for John Podesta, but if I had to take a guess, I'd say he probably knows more than you and me. That's just my guess. And then we had another $5 donation from John Music. Thank you guys so much for these super chat questions. And this is for Dave. And we're going to get through this article real quick, just sort of give our final thoughts on it, and then get into why Dave's here and what he does and what his expertise is. So John asked, does Mr. Hiss have any updates on an upcoming big UFO news that we will all keep hessing about that is supposed to be coming very soon? Man, it sounds like John Music might know you. He's calling you out. Do you have anything, Hiss?
I don't personally.
Okay.
That's, UFOs are kind of do what they want.
Right.
And they, the government, I don't think has any big story up their sleeve at the moment that they're going to share. But
I think the stories are in the sleeve.
Well,
they're never going to see it like a magician.
It's the government's job to know these things and understand them in a way that makes sense for what they do, which is governance of humanity. Yeah. So there's people that speculate. I watched Ross's interview recently on YouTube last night, actually.
Yeah, Andy McGrillen did a killer interview with Ross Coulthart.
So
go check it out. It's awesome.
Quite a bit, and I thought, it's obvious they know more than what they're saying. They should. I would hope they do with all the work they're doing in that area. So, no, I don't have any news. I wouldn't expect any big earth-shattering news at any time specifically from that.
Okay. Christina, did you have any thoughts or questions?
So about the article?
Hold on one second. Dave, do you have a pair of headphones?
I do. Do you want me to get them?
Yeah. Go
okay. Give me a sec.
Did you have any thoughts on or anything else about this article you wanted to talk about?
There was one more quote that I liked that he said, and it says, "It's okay for us to say we don't know what's happening, so let's figure it out." And I think with the report that we've all seen and read, I don't think it's a bad thing to say we simply don't know what it is, but we need to collect the data to find out the answers. But just saying, "Oh, I don't know," and pushing it away, or saying, "I know, but I won't tell you," are both, I think, wrong approaches. But the way that he worded it is wise.
Right. Daniel, what do you think? What are you thinking?
I mean, Christina's absolutely right. That's the appropriate response to that report. These are an aviation threat. They're potentially a national security threat. We don't know what they are. Seems like the next proper response should be, we should probably look into that. That shouldn't be a controversial viewpoint that, requires anyone to be mocked.
Sorry, what were you going to say, Christina?
And there should also be public information as well, obviously, because from hearsay, many of us believe that they already have all this information. It's just not public. But and including these congressmen, it seems like, based off what he's saying, they also don't have access to this information.
Right. No, this was a cool quote from Christopher Mellon in the article. He says, "It is encouraging to see serious interest expressed," said Christopher Mellon, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence. It's such a long title. God, I would hate to have a business card with that. Who also served on the staff of the Senate Intelligence Committee. However, he said a Pentagon staffer is in no position to lead a multi-agency effort to identify the most useful signatures for tracking UAPs or development or implement a collection plan. That's above all what it is lacking. He said, quote, "A good alternative would be for Congress to direct the Secretary of Defense to identify an official at the 4-star level who is accountable for the UAP issue and can implement an effective program of collection and analysis. That is the only way we'll be able to determine the origin and capabilities of these vehicles," he added. I agree with Christopher Mellon. I think the only way, not only higher ups and Congress and the Senate start taking this more seriously, if it's coming from the mouth of an active 4-star general. I think it's not the only way, other than like a president or say a Speaker of the House, maybe, someone in that vein. But what do you think about that, Dave?
I kind of see things differently because of where I came from, and I've worked on the defense side of things, and then later on in my career I worked with political end of things, politicians, and I can tell you there's a pretty big disconnect between those two kind of groups. The politicians are not really aware of all of the things that are happening within the defense, and vice versa to a large extent. So occasionally on issues, these groups collide and you'll see this sort of friction start to happen. And this issue is one of those that's kind of got some, serious fans or detractors on either side of it. And they're kind of converging around this. I think politically, the defense area has dealt with this and has been dealing with this for 70 years or more. And so they're kind of tired of it in a political arena. They're like, there's nothing to be gained from the political kind of grandstanding that some of the politicians will want to use this issue for. So I kind of think that the defense end of things is just waiting to see what happens with the political situation before they decide, okay, we're going to get serious about this or not. And that looks to me like it's gaining kind of criticality, the seriousness of some of the people that are bringing this issue up. Marco Rubio, his position with the committee he's on, the Intel committee, that's a real powerful position. And the Defense Department is waking up when that guy starts asking for things. So, I would expect to see some kind of continuing political settlement of this issue, where they're going to decide, yeah, let's go ahead and fund a collection effort. It'll be, multi-agency. It's not going to be, it wouldn't surprise me if the DOD didn't want anything to do with it after that and said, this is an FAA or FCC or something like that issue, and kind of shunt it off to, it could even end up in NOAA. I mean, that's.
Do you think we're close to having a 4-star general sort of calling the shots on this? Because if we do, I think all of those things you just said maybe start.
Well,
moving.
Yeah. So definitely there's going to be a program, right, that starts to collect data on this. The question of ownership of it is what's kind of on the table right now. And I think that some of the components of the Defense Department are more interested in it than others. And so the Air Force probably being one that's not very interested in.
Well, the Air Force made their position very
right.
clear in this article.
Right. So, and we've known that. I mean, they bailed out a blue book a long time ago, and their opinion was pretty well known, and it's caused them a lot of heartburn. And they, to be fair, they probably weren't treated very fairly with respect to what they were trying to accomplish. So I don't know that defense is going to want to bite on this or not, but they're definitely going to want the data from it. I just don't know if they're going to want to hang their badge on it and say, yeah, this is our project type of thing.
Right. What do you got, Miller?
I agree. I don't think they do want it. There was a memo, the memo from Kathleen Hicks, who was the Deputy Secretary of Defense. The memo did call for an entity, kind of what the House language is already saying, within the DOD. So I don't know how binding her memo is, but if it is binding, then it sounds like it does have to be within the DOD. But that almost makes me almost more nervous, because I feel like you just have a bunch of people who really don't want to deal with that portfolio, who are now forced to just deal with it. I can only imagine if there is a 4-star general, he's like, great, I'm the UFO guy now,
That's a very good point. Like, there's going to be resistance from a 4-star general going, no, definitely not. John Russell with a $25 donation. Thank you so much, sir. He says, all of these government jerks continue to get their perks and fat paychecks while they sell us a snow job, all the while knowing better. It's time for it to come to an end, and we're the mechanism for that. I think you're right. I think we're part of the mechanism for that. That is for sure. I think could continue. I think, I can't confirm this, but I do have a feeling he definitely looks at his Twitter account, and I think over the big phone home weekend when that account was hit with a couple of hundred tweets on this topic, I think he pays attention, and I think it moves the needle. So yeah, I think you're right. I absolutely think you're right. It doesn't take, only takes a couple hundred, retweets and tweets and shout outs for a senator to go, all right, what's this? Or a staffer or anybody to just sort of push it up the chain. Christina, what do you think?
What Daniel said, and also about what you said as well about not these people placing their badges on when it comes to the UAP topic. I want, in a sense, to agree and to disagree on that. I can agree in the public sense, but we're just unsure if they're already doing it and not making it public, right? Because it's always safer, and it even goes for scientists. You don't give out your data, you don't give out your hypothesis until you've already finished your experiments. Otherwise, what if that hypothesis is wrong? You're not going to go out there and be made fun of. You're going to wait until everything is finished. You have all your data collected. You have your papers finished, and then you show the public. So it's very possible that the same thing could happen with the government. Maybe they're already collecting data. Maybe they're already having these things happening, such as ATIP, that was a quiet project until just recently, and then the same thing could still be happening presently, and they won't give out the information until they have good data to present.
Yeah. Well, either way you slice this story, it's a good thing. Like, it's a good thing. It's a political article, number one. Let's not sort of throw that under the bus. It's an amazing journalist. Like, these are two things you shouldn't forget about. These are two, like, Politico is a very normie news entity, as Jazz would probably love to call it. This is it's a political platform that a lot of people go to get their information from. And so when you get a political article like this, I wish it wasn't on a Saturday when they released it. I would love to see an article like this on a Monday or a Tuesday earlier in the week, when the news stream is more likely to pick something like this up. I wish Politico have a little bit more gumption and trust your journalist that he's doing a good job. This is a big deal. This is a congressman who just pushed through legislation to get more UAP data for congressmen and senators to look at, so they could come to a decision on whether or not even so much whether or not they're looking at it. The office is going to be as soon as the bill signed into law, which will be December 31st of this year, starting January 1st, they're going to start putting an office together, a permanent office for UAP data collection. Yep. That's amazing. And again, like Christina said, we're definitely going to, at the very least, senators and congressmen are going to get one report a year. I think they're going to get up to 4, maybe even 5. And if this is a 4-year program, 6-year program, I think that they're looking at doing to 2026. So 5 years. 4 as soon as we get to 2022, but 4 years, that means at the very least 4 reports, at the very most 6 times 4, 24, 24 reports plus 1 yearly report. That's up to 29 reports that Congress could get. That's a lot of data. That's a lot of information. And I think it's going to get more and more interesting as the data is presented to our local and state representatives. And I think that stuff starts to trickle down to us, and then we get to, sort of get a sneak peek behind how the machine works. So, I mean, either way, I'm excited about this. All right. So enough about Brian Bender and Politico. Let's get to why Dave is here. So Dave, if you can, for those who don't know who you are, give us sort of an introduction into Dave Hiss. Like, what is your background? Because you referenced it a couple of times in talking about this article. So lay it out for us, brother. What do you got?
Okay. So my name's Dave Hiss.
By the way, is this your first podcast show you've ever done?
Yeah.
You're doing fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about
welcome,
it.
Welcome to the Unidentified Celebrity Room.
I've been a fan for a while. I've been lurking.
I appreciate it.
It's not a new format, but yeah. So I kind of have a background in science and technology. I early in my career was lucky and got a job out at White Sands Missile Range, and was able to work my way up into some fairly decent positions within that establishment, I guess. And the way that community works, when you start to develop a reputation for technical proficiency, you kind of get recruited. They'll come and pull you into different projects and so forth. So I got to see a lot of stuff that was really interesting to me. I was into science from an early age. I had met Clyde Tombaugh and, you know, all that. So I live in the same town with him.
Are you allowed to be more specific about cool stuff?
Sure. I mean, you know, things that you could see from Google Earth are like a solar furnace that has a large mirror array that catches the sun's rays and focuses them through a lens. And that highly focused sunlight is used to, in my case, explode a frozen turkey and get in a lot of trouble for having to clean up optics. or you know, we had cast iron fry pans that were melted through in less than a second with the thing. So, wow. You know, big boy toys that generate, you know, lots of power, static electricity generators.
You sound like one of those guys who just sits around a wood chipper and it's like, let's see what this thing can eat.
Well, it's a little more complex than that, but yeah, basically it's, you know, so I was involved in a lot of testing and development of new materials, and also software. I developed software to interface with some of the new stuff that came out. So I kind of dabbled in a lot of stuff. I had confined space, vertical and horizontal ratings. So I would get access into areas that were hard to get to and specialized stuff. I worked in, most of my time at White Sands was spent with a nuclear effects laboratory, which is part of the Department of the Army, and they do research into nuclear effects. So things like EMP bursts, radiation, health physics, and all of the things that go along with nuclear material, nuclear war, and surviving nuclear war. So that's kind of my background in that. I also did some work for the Army research laboratories and wrote some software for them and did some security work for them. I also worked for the German Air Force out at Holloman Air Force Base through a contract I had with them, and that was pretty interesting, cross-cultural exchange. They have a training, or used to have a training wing at Holloman that flew jets out of there. So,
damn, that is pretty cool stuff. Does anybody have a question for Dave so far?
I'm just curious about, was the move to nuclear effects kind of just they needed someone there, or were you drawn to that and tried to get? I'm just kind of curious how the move there happened.
That's an interesting
From blowing up
story.
turkeys to nuclear effects.
Well, no, actually, the turkeys were at nuclear effects.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
But I initially I was pretty unskilled labor, and was basically working on a construction project out in the middle of nowhere. White Sands is a large, geographic area, and I was, 40 miles out in the middle of the desert, working on a retaining wall, of all things, building a rock wall. And I had some skills with GIS and AutoCAD, and this was early 90s, so it was new technology. And I was updating the as-built drawings for that facility after we built the wall, and somebody noticed I had these skills, AutoCAD skills, and said, "Mr. Hiss, would you like come for an interview with us?" And I had no idea where I was going to be working, or who I would be working with, or what I would be doing, or it was just in air conditioning. The ground temperatures out there were about 140 degrees. I was working under a sprinkler. And so when the opportunity came to get in an air conditioned facility, I didn't ask too many questions. But after my first day, I asked a lot of questions. I was like, wow, this is like Get Smart. When I don't know if you've seen the intro to that show.
Christina, do you know that TV show?
The TV show and the movie.
Yeah,
okay,
so
right.
Agent 99.
I thought for sure that was going to go over Christina's head, for sure.
Well,
No
that's
offense,
how
Christina, but Get Smart was on TV when I was a kid. It was on reruns when I was a kid. So I was just like, oh, okay, Christina knows about the telephone shoe. Excellent. Love it.
Yeah. So that was kind of what it felt like to me going to work at this facility. It was, just going through the kind of the hamster chute, to get in and out every day. And after a while you got used to that, but I would bring friends down to my facility at times for lunch or something. And they, first of all, would be like, "You work where? I've never heard of that place." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. It's not in the phone book." And so I'd take them down there, and you'd have to get them on lists and get approvals and so forth. And it was a big deal to people that had never been there, but for the day-to-day guys, it was just another
day of blown up turkeys.
Well, yeah.
Bottled Water with a $5 donation, friend of the show. He says, "Hey Dave, I know where the rocket launch site that is hidden on White Sands is. I hate that place."
Yeah,
are
you're
you
not
familiar?
alone.
Okay, so you know what he's talking about. Have you been to that area?
Well, there's many launch sites at White Sands. I mean, there's like LC-33, LC-48, LC. Wow. So they go, they're launching stuff all the time from all over the place. There's no hidden launch sites. They're all right there on the side of the road with a sign that says LC-38 Patriot Project or whatever. Right. And you know where you're going. I can empathize with him if he had to work out at one of those facilities. They're, dusty, nasty, filled with scorpions, and hot. I mean, it's the desert. I mean,
right. Well, I guess they put it out there because chance of people going out there to go snoop around is just to snoop around would be really hard. Let alone actually
getting to the edge of
there.
It to snoop around.
Is insane.
So there's not that sort of thing really going on out there as far as I know. It's pretty boring for the most part.
John Lindy with a $5 donation. Thank you so much, sir. I had to replace my credit card, so my Patreon got canceled. Don't worry about it. Sign it back up. I love it. Love you, John. Appreciate the support, man. There was, I think I missed another super chat somewhere here. There was a Bitcoin. There it is. I found it. Brian McDonald, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Any cool new materials you could talk about? Waveguide stuff. Stoof. I don't have any new materials or waveguide stuff. Do you know anything about this, Dave?
I know what a waveguide is.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, what's a waveguide? Can you inform us? Because I don't know what this. Brian, I'm sorry. This is probably the least amount of satisfaction you've ever gotten from a $5 super chat question, and I apologize. But yeah, it's a weird. I guess this question's for Dave. But I mean, yeah.
So I mean, first of all, I haven't worked at White Sands for 20 years. So, and I wasn't working with metamaterials or anything like that. They probably didn't really exist back then. So I don't have any, top secret stuff I can share with you about that. I did work with plenty of waveguides. I know what they are or what they do. One's in your house right now, sitting in your microwave. They're basically just a megaphone that your emitter speaks through the narrow end of, and the waves get guided out the megaphone. So it's, you could think about it as just as you use a megaphone to speak with, a waveguide is something that guides the waves that are being generated into a beam or a focused area. And they look different depending on what their purpose is. Some of them could be huge, some of them could be tiny.
Well, I'll maybe we'll bring that back around to some of these things that you emailed me
about. Squidding would be playing with waveguides.
Yeah, of course he would be. Yeah, he's got cloud chambers sitting in his house. Yeah. Bottled water with a $5 donation again. Thank you, sir. And he said I'm talking about the one that is near the old airstrip that is hidden on Google Earth. It's near First AD, had a base camp for their NIE exercise.
Sure. Yeah, Condren Airstrip. I mean, it's on the side of the road. Planes land there. Helicopters take off there. Tanks drive around the track that's around the outside of it. It's, what the government does. I mean, they do things on a day-to-day basis that once you get past the idea that, oh, this is some secret thing, it's pretty boring. I mean, they drive stuff around in circles and have instruments that check it for things that happen. I mean,
well, let's talk a little bit about UAP detection requirements proposal that you wrote to me.
Oh, that was the back of the napkin.
I can't imagine what else is going on, but you gave me 9 things that are in this proposal. So let's go through them. The first that you were, go for it.
Let me frame this a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
First of all, I don't want anyone to get the idea that this has any basis whatsoever in reality. I just wanted to try and frame this idea in a way that people could step through it and understand like how this is going to manifest in reality once the government starts to take action on it. And so my experience with projects in the past, coming from, even proposing projects for, hey, we should do this, all the way up to being recruited for projects in late phase stuff to, kind of patch things or whatever. So I've seen kind of the whole progression of it. And the 9 items I sent you were basically kind of comic book level take on how this would occur should it happen, and the kind of things that if I met some guy in an airport from the government who was like, hey, I'm about to go into a meeting and I want some stuff to talk about, these are the kind of things I would give them to discuss. So we can go through those one by one and talk about.
Let's do it. Before we do, we're about to come up on a reset here. Hold on, you do watch the show. Thank you.
I do.
We did have a question. This was also a question for me. I forgot to ask you an email from our chat moderator, Tina Tomaszewski, and she asked, "Do you have a social media? Where can people find you on Twitter?"
So because of my past career, I generally tend to shy away from social media. I'm not averse to it now. It's not like the collar's been let off me or something like that. I no longer have the interest in IT support that I used to. So I've kind of freed myself from that and want to explore more creative things. And so this is one of the things I'm doing. But yeah, that's kind of my take on it. Social media. I actually was driven to, as I told you in the email, I actually got a new phone just so I could communicate with you. And I plan on getting a Twitter just so I could be part of this UFO Twitter thing.
Yeah.
Because I hear a lot about it, but
it's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun and dangerous at the same time.
I hide from
good memes.
Yeah,
I'm a meme person.
Well, then there you go. Yeah, you definitely got to get on there. So, as soon as you get that, let us know, and we'll make sure to share your link so people can follow you. Okay, so let's get into this. Let's get into the things that you emailed me. Let's start with number one, and you pray here: discussion of government-sponsored modular, scalable, and network system to detect and collect data on UAP.
Right. So yeah, I mean that's how I would title my proposal if I were writing it to for a DoD person to Harris or Raytheon or someone like that. You're going to look at addressing this contract with a contractor, right? The government doesn't really produce anything itself. They take it out to their specialists and get it done. So the requirements for this thing are what is being established in kind of this document, very loosely comic book level stuff. But basically, we're just trying to establish the intent that, yeah, this is a project. We're trying to get a system in place that, has these characteristics and provides this continuity of data and consistency of data across all of its outputs. And that can lend itself to high-speed automated processing and analysis, or even further detailed manual analysis later on. So,
okay, real quick, before we get to number two, what I want to do is reset the room, just remind everybody who's here. Of course, we've got to I guess it would be my left. My left, even though when I look at it, she's on my right. Either way, she's everywhere. Miss Christina Gomez, how are you? Thank you for being here. Guys, everybody's links are down below, except of course for David Hiss. He's going to be on Twitter soon. As soon as he does, we'll get you guys that link. Christina Gomez, what are you working on this week? Anything you want to tell the people about?
Tomorrow, I have Mysteries with the History, which the topic is going to be astral projection and out-of-body experience. And then on Wednesday, I have Micah Hanks talking about The Others, which is everything that is kind of under cryptids, which is going to be really interesting. And I have some other cool stuff lined up in the near future, so I'm really excited to be able to talk about it when it becomes,
real. When it's tangible, when I could touch it. Daniel Miller, of course, is our resident what would we call you? Just resident friend of the show. Probably the best looking guy on all of UFO Twitter. Not going to get better looking than Daniel here.
Hey man, I'll take it. That's why I'm here, just to the confidence boost.
The face man.
Exactly. So real quick, let's hear a little message from our Patreon, and we'll get back to this discussion. I'm going to tell you all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support. All right, we're back. Real quick, I didn't make a week. I didn't have, not that I didn't have time this week to make a calendar. I did. I was just on vacation. Dude, when I tell you I was on vacation mode this week, other than the 2 shows that we did, I didn't look at one podcast. I lightly listened to some shows here and there, but I really try to just separate myself for the week. And I think I did a pretty good job at that. So we didn't have an updated calendar this week, but I did want to give just a shout out to some of our new members because I promised you guys a calendar last week and I didn't do it. So Vanessa Lee, Alex Melias, and Enrico Tejani, John Russell has always been a Patreon. He is the man. MP, all of you guys, thank you guys so damn much for the Patreon support. Truly, it helps tremendously. You have no idea, to make the show a reality. So yeah, with all that out of the way, Dave, let's get to number 2, shall we?
Sure.
Okay, so number 2 is a system can be co-located with VOR to provide power and reasonable detection area saturation. So what do you mean by that?
Okay, so I was just thinking, where am I going to locate these sensors? And, government property is a good place for that, just because you don't have issues with private land ownership, access, etc. All the stuff you need is going to be there. A VOR, I don't know if people know what that is, but it's a instrument that's used by aircraft to navigate. And so these instruments are placed on the ground throughout the continent of the North America and really the world. But the FAA has control over these sites, and they're physically on the ground. They're a fenced-in area with what looks like a big radome, basically a tower that has an antenna in it. The reason I thought about that was because I know they're all over. I fly in a flight sim, so I'm familiar with that. They're usually located in areas that have good visual or radio pathways, so they can see a lot of sky from where they're located. And I thought, okay, since they're federally owned sites, they already have power infrastructure here, that would be a good place to plunk these, systems down and have power and security and all the things necessary to run this system in a way that is, practical.
Right.
So that's what the VOR is, and that's why I propose co-locating with these VORs. And, to kind of further my comic book idea here, if you want to visualize this system, you could visualize something like a CWIS. I don't know if you know what that is, or a phalanx system that's on a ship. They're a big turret with a gun in it that shoots incoming missiles when they're shot at a ship.
They're automated.
Right. In Iraq, they use them to take out incoming mortars or things like that. And so this is a turret with optical and radar sensors on it that pivots pretty quickly. I mean, it doesn't fool around. And it has, all weather capability. So this thing without the gun, basically, and instead have, more instruments that are capable of capturing whatever data we want to capture.
No, basically you're just writing, this is just what you would do if you had all of the power. I love how you put it as like a comic book. This is like,
yeah, it is.
This is
I mean,
if I could do all of the fantasy things to detect UAP through instruments that already exist and methods that we already have, these are the things that I would do. Would these be the specific order in which you would do them, or are you kind of thinking of things and writing them down?
Yeah, this is a 5-minute dump on what I would, literally an airport lounge exchange with someone who's going into a meeting. And that's kind of what I sent you, is just here's a kind of an idea about how this would work. So this is kind of the language that I would expect to see from the government to Raytheon or Harris or one of these defense contractors who could produce this sort of station that's going to provide this data. And I talk about some, and it's not hobby level stuff, and I'll let you get down into the next one so you can.
So well, actually, while we're still on that, interesting enough, talking about UAP sensor and detectors, Lua Elizondo said on my show that there's one place where you can find one sensor which would be enough to capture UAP evidence. He declined to say where, but that really opened up a Pandora's box of speculation. So while we're talking about VOR, which stands for very high frequency omnidirectional range, how far is the range of those VOR detectors?
Well, I couldn't tell you that in terms of an absolute distance. I do know that, when you're flying around, you can see distant VORs and tune your autopilot to them and have it fly directly to them. And sometimes that causes a problem because you don't want to go directly to it. You might have a mountain range that is in between and you want to go around it. So you can pick these things up, and I'm not trying to associate anything to do with this VOR radio frequency, that I'm not going to use this VOR stuff. I wanted to be real clear about that, because the FAA will have a lightning bolt hit me right now if they think I'm proposing to do something with their navigational things. I just noticed that these things are spread around out in the country, and they all have power, and they're all monitored and secured. So these sites are all spread around and are very pre-infrastructured for this sort of system. And the fact that they see a lot of sky at each of these facilities means that it's a good place to co-locate any sort of optical system that's going to detect anything. So, and I do go into some radar, passive radar in there. There's VIDAR, visual radar, things like that, that you could use to provide data to this system. And in one of those items, I think I addressed that and discussing that I wanted to use the radio frequencies that the VORs are emitting as a source for a passive radar system. So a passive radar, for everyone who's not jazz, is a system that works like half of a radar system. And that a radar emits a signal and then sees what's bouncing back from the object. Passive radar uses a signal from somewhere else. They don't generate the signal themselves. And so you could use television stations, or in our case, the VOR frequency, which has a pretty good range, as a passive radar detector. And you have a sensor that points in the sky, another sensor that points at the emitter, and it tells the difference between the signal it sees coming back from the sky and the source, and tells you, oh, there's an object up there, or something reflecting that radio frequency. It's not super accurate. I mean, in terms of radar, there's better systems out there. The nice thing about it is it's silent. It doesn't make any noise. You're just capturing what's out there.
Right.
And it doesn't interfere with anything. It's not active.
Well, can I ask you this before we get on to the next parts? And then we got a $20 donation from Bottled Water. And it's a question. If you had to take a guess, just based off your expertise on this kind of systems, that's sort of the $1 million question that's floating around Twitter right now, is what Christina brought up. This system that Lou Elizondo, this one collection device that he hasn't named yet, or what it is, or where it could be, or if it's something that an average everyday citizen could, I love saying, go to Radio Shack and buy.
So
Radio Shack's not a thing
COTS
anymore.
is what we call it. Commercial off the shelf.
There you go.
You'll see that in the
commercial
DoD
off the shelf
documents.
I like it.
COTS.
Do you think this instrument? Well, do you have any sort of theories as to what instrument he's talking about? Is it a COT device, or is it something that would probably be more expensive and out of reach for a normal everyday schmo like me?
Well, a lot of the COTS stuff is already expensive and out of reach.
Right.
And there's a big difference between the sort of instruments that the government or government contractor uses to collect data and the hobby level, or even advanced hobby level. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about the advanced hobby level stuff probably stops at about 20,000 for a good optical device. The real big boy toys are upwards of $1 million. I mean, and they have liquid nitrogen cooling them and all sorts of, it's not something you're going to run in your backyard. Yeah. Even if you had a lot of money, unless, Jeff Bezos money or something. But
okay. Well, let's say I am Jeff Bezos. What would you set up in your backyard to possibly catch one of these things? Do you have anything
I could set you up a pretty wild system, man.
Okay. Lay it out. Well, man. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are.
Now you're getting into some consulting, but
what do I have to pay a fee here,
No, well, what I'm saying is I just don't want to give away too much, but
okay, fair.
Look,
right.
You can, from looking at it as a scientist, right? Mm-hmm. You're trying to collect data that you can use for analysis. So what sort of data is useful to you? A photograph is not useful. A photograph isn't even proof. You can come back with a photograph of a giant spaceship and say, it was here 5 minutes ago. I can file 13 it and go, yeah, when it comes back, we can do something with it. But
how do you feel about the Galileo project?
Right. And so part of the problem that the government has, and any scientist is going to have collecting data on these things, is that when you go to collect data on something that's happening fast or has a lot of things happening and a large envelope of unknowns that you want to capture, it requires extensive instrumentation and pre-planning. And these things just don't appear on a lab bench where we've got all this stuff focused on it. And, it's hard to predict where these things are going to occur. If you want to put this package of instruments up there that's going to be able to give you any sort of usable data. Things that I'm looking at are, thermal. What are the temperatures of this thing up in the sky? And these are all, 8th grade science level stuff. It's not secret. So the light that these objects emit is a big thing. And we hear all sorts of colors and brightness levels and so forth. Spectrometry of visible light wavelength. You can get an intensity reading from that light and a frequency, a temperature reading from the light, so what temperature is red, it's blue, and then you can infer from physics formulas how much power it's taking to emanate that much light from that far of a distance. And that tells you right there, oh, okay, this thing requires, 600,000 megawatts to produce this amount of light that I'm capturing with this device. Well, 600,000 megawatts is a lot of power. And that's just the light from this thing. It's not its engine, or it's, you know, it's just the actual floodlights or whatever it is that's emitting the light. So being able to capture all these data points, not just, you know, there was an object and it moves this fast, or there was an object and it was really bright. How bright was it? You know, can we quantify that? Can we look at the frequency of light, the temperature of light? Do we have matches to other readings from other parts of the world or other parts of the country across time? So when you start standardizing that collection, that data builds up, and you can look at analytics and say, okay, I'm seeing this object that generates this wavelength of light at this intensity in different places. You could infer that it might be the same device, or maybe better infer that it's the same type of device. So that sort of data is what we're looking for, not, you know, hey, I saw something, or it landed and left a mark on the ground. It's about what sort of hard data you can capture on the thing. And, you know, the idea of capturing this data is all remotely. You're not going to be able to get up to the thing and measure it or scrape a sample or do, you know, the things that you'd want to do. So these instrumentation packages that Lou Elizondo's talking about are, you know, multispectral. They're going to cover everything from 1 hertz to terahertz and visible light and everything else in between, that, you know, and you can ramp that up with your checkbook. I mean, you can, you know, say, I want 0 to, you know, 10 zillion hertz sensors, and they can give them to you. It's just going to cost you a lot of money and expertise to integrate this stuff. So that's kind of the gist of my comic book here.
So a huge thermal camera in the backyard.
No, it's a thermal camera is only going to give you,
So
you know,
much.
some.
I know, but it would have to be a combination of all these things.
Yeah, it's going to look like, you know, I mean, you can look up pictures of missile telemetry tracking systems, and that's going to give you a really good idea about what this system looks like. BAE makes a pod, actually a couple pods, that have radar and optics co-located, and they pivot around and track your stuff flying through the sky. You know, that's a COTS product. You could buy that thing probably $25 million or something. But they'll bring it to you on a trailer or a Sikorsky or whatever it is you want them to drop it off with. And, you know, you can set it up and collect data with it.
All right, so guys, let's get these super chats going. I'm going to raise $25 million. Let's do it. And we're almost there with this donation. Thank you, Bottled Water, with $20 donation. Okay, serious question, Dave. Has there not been any serious questions there? I think he's talking about himself. Anyway, Dave, what is, if any, application of quantum entanglement-based radar that is used in theory for detecting stealth aircraft useful for? Is it too early for it to be reliable?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I've read some stuff on how they're sifting through radar data using quantum analysis and AI to eliminate noise and so forth. I just don't know that, you know, I'm not a radar specialist. I'm a very broad scoped generalist. So I know probably a medium amount about a lot of things, and then a lot about a few things and then not much about the rest.
Right.
So yeah, radar is something that I know is constantly evolving, and they're better all the time. I mean, so I couldn't tell you about the latest algorithm they're using to sort out stuff, but you know, they have it.
Another $20 super chat question from Steve Riegstad. What about being able to access data from the ballistic missile early warning system that already have in place with full coverage?
So yeah, I'm sure that thing's producing data. It would be fixed if it wasn't. So the problem with a lot of this data collection is that it's kind of entangled with some of these classified sensor systems. And so it's very hard for them to go in and say, we want to unclassify this one incident or item and expose it to the public, because it's going to create more questions and more requests, and that, you know, isn't something that they necessarily want to share with people. And it's not that they're trying to keep anything a secret from you. It's really like they're running around scared late at night, staying up, worrying about enemies of our country hurting us. I mean, and you know, 98% of them are like that. And there's maybe 2 that are, you know, trying to be secret squirrels, but the rest of them are, you know, genuine American people who have families, and you know, they might work for the government, but their in-laws don't, or never have, and they're just as interested in protecting them as they are everyone else. So I kind of have a different view on that sort of thing, that, you know, people are like, you're keeping secrets from us, and I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, your dad told you Santa Claus was real when you were a kid. It was for good things. I mean, it didn't have an evil intent. And, you know, some of the things I hear about the government withholding because of fear may not be unreasonable. I think people tend to panic and overreact, and the meme gets going, and there's just all of this silliness and panic that comes from any release of government information. So yeah, I could see them not wanting to share things that they weren't 100% sure about, or didn't, you know, because what happens if the government says, yeah, we think there was a big UFO up there, and then they find out, oh, it was a piece of space junk or something, and they lose a lot of credibility. They're not going to be able to gain that back easily. And this issue is very contentious. So it's struggling with credibility right now. And it's important for them to be sure that they could back up with 100% concrete accuracy any claim they're going to make about this. So they might think, they might feel, they might be pretty darn sure that there's UFOs up there. But until they kind of have one in hand and can do some tests on it and so forth, I don't think they're going to say, yeah, we got a UFO. I mean,
right.
Or we know for sure they're out there.
Well, I try not to have a belief system, right? But one of the things that seems to make a lot of sense as to why the government, and again, we're just painting a broad stroke over that, because there's a lot of individuals in the government, there's a lot of people that are curious, there's a lot of wonderful people that work within our government, and it gets this brush of evil, you know, all across the board. And it's for good reason. I mean, just today we found out that the CIA wanted to kill and had drawn up plans to kill a journalist. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, you know, you got to keep in mind too that the CIA doesn't task themselves. So
This
they're
is
not
true.
sitting
I'm
there
just-
on
yeah.
their own going, hey, we're going to go kill Edward Snowden or,
Well,
you
no,
know,
they got
Assange.
they got it from the president. The president and the administrations are the one who asked them or inquired about possibly doing this.
And,
You know,
and
it's just, but when stuff like that comes out, it does so much damage for public trust. So when they hear a government insider or anybody that's got a label that has anything remotely close to do with government, stories like this is the first thing they think of.
yeah, I agree with you. And, you know, I guess my viewpoint on it is, especially with the CIA, who seems to be kind of a whipping boy for a lot of this stuff. And I'm not a CIA fanboy. I don't work for the CIA. I don't know anyone.
Well,
who
that's
works for
what
the
a
CIA.
CIA agent would say, though, to be fair.
Well, and that segues really well into what I was going to say about it. We're picking on an agency that can neither confirm or deny anything.
Right.
So how, you know, it's kind of like beating up on a mute who can't defend themselves. Right. Because what could they say to refute what is being said? Nothing. I mean, they can't deny it. They can't confirm it. And so, you know, they're kind of stuck in this lurch.
The issue with the CIA, yeah, it's I agree with what you're saying. I think I hope, I don't know, but I hope that the CIA has mostly good intentions, but it seems like every time we hear about something from these guys, it's the worst part of our democracy. It is like everything that we wrote the Constitution for to avoid, and these guys seem to do a really sometimes piss poor job of covering up the work they're doing. And then when it does get leaked to the surface, it's always really shady shit. You know, well, it's kidnapping. They're an intelligence agency. No, I understand, but it's like, you know, if it's not kidnapping our own citizens and pumping them with LSD, you know, if it's not that, it's trying to kill journalists. If it's not that, it's trying to, you know, install governments in other parts of the world so they can. It helps our special interests. I agree with what you're saying. They're sort of in a tough spot. Like
you know, here's the flip side to that is. Yeah. All of the positive news things that happen,
we don't hear about.
You'll never hear about.
Never hear about
all the success,
and that's fair.
And they're never gonna. No news journalist is going to go break a story on the CIA's success over here or over there. It just doesn't happen. They actually have to sell it or buy someone, you know, right. journalistic time to get their story out there about those sort of things. I saw one in the escape from Afghanistan recently, how they were using their base to secret people out of there. So, and they didn't want to say that. That was somebody else, I'm sure, who. So I'm not sticking up for them. I know they do all sorts of bad stuff.
But you make a wonderful point, and it's true.
They're professionals. They're doing it for a reason. We don't. And one thing I did learn when I worked with all that classified and politicians too, really I learned it more with politicians, is that I advise them a lot with technical stuff and different issues, and realized that when I would give my advice and I would be dismissed, that there was a decision made later on. And sometimes that decision did not line up well with what I was giving them. Like, right. You know, whoa, you totally disregarded what I said and went the other direction. Yeah. And you tend to get a little upset about that because you get invested in these things personally. Right. Right. And what you come to find out is that you don't know all of the factors that went into that decision. Right. And it's, you know, it is above your pay grade. You know, that's just a fact. Right. And so you can't be privy to all of the things that went into that decision. And you have to place some trust and faith in your leadership that they know what's going on. They know how you feel. They feel the same way. Sometimes these decisions are very hard and cause ulcers and psychological problems. And, you know, these are human beings that make these decisions. So I'm just trying to illustrate that, you know, there's a full spectrum of
Well,
stuff
you're
going
doing
there.
a great job of replacing Rather on this show today. I'll tell you that.
Thanks.
Rather would definitely, I think, come with that viewpoint. Real quick, Bricktop with a $2 donation. I'm not sure if this is the name of a new band, but you did say Secret Squirrels when you were talking. But
Tom DeLonge's fourth book.
I was gonna say it's a sequel to Secret Machines. And then there was also the I just missed it. I was gonna pull it up, but there was I got it. It's right here. This also was a really funny call out by UFO Blueprint. He says a guy with no social media knows about memes. Call him out. How do you know about memes, Davis?
I have friends.
We asked the tough questions here on the Unidentified Celebrity Review.
Yeah, I have some meme king friends, man. And, you know, from the IT world, just as an IT admin, the stuff you see on users' computers is entertaining enough. But I've got plenty of little hacker buddies out there, and, you know, they're all have very horrible senses of humor. So they send me all sorts of memes, and yeah, it's entertaining. The idea of a meme has gained so much power that, you know, you were saying 100 tweets to your congressman I think it's the one call from the right person who says the right thing, or that one meme that lights a fire under them.
You know what I was going to use? The meme that absolutely just set this event off, Storm Area 51. It was a meme that got really going crazy.
But no one showed up.
But no one. Well, I would say nobody showed up, but it was. But look, if you showed up, shame on you. Honestly, like, I don't know why you go out to there, and nobody. I mean, like, look, if you could organize 2 million people to show up at the gate at Area 51, that would be a huge story and a big problem for the base to actually handle. But I don't think 2 million people are going to show up to the middle of the desert without food and water. I mean, if you had to walk from the front gate to where the bases are, just the runway is 3 miles. One of the runways at Area 51 is 3 miles long. A runway. Okay? Like, you'd never make it. If 3 million people started out of the gate at Area 51, I think maybe 20,000 would actually make it to the gate, like to the hangars, and then when you get in there, I think you'd be insanely disappointed. But that's just my opinion. Anyway,
guys, shot.
Yeah. Before we go, and we've only worked down this short, but that's okay because this conversation is a lot of fun. Do you guys? Do either one of you guys have any questions so far? Please feel free to jump in anytime.
When I think when we get into some other points, I did write down some questions, so I'll just listen it out.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to listen first. I have one, but I want to hold on. It'll get answered.
All right, cool. Well, let's get on to the third
Nice.
UAP detection requirement proposal. And it has a subpart as well. So systems can use VOR radio beacon as a source for passive radar data detection of UAP. And then the subpoint was systems capable of passive radar can also be used for RDF, and the source itself is emitting detectable RF. Right. So walk us through that.
Okay. Passive radar we went into a little bit earlier. You know, that stuff is available for hobbyists at this point. There's a device called a software-defined radio, or SDR, and they sell a board that has 4 of these radios on it in what's called coherence, and that allows you to perform passive radar functions with this device. Is about $200, and it hooks up to your computer. And additionally, this sort of device, because of its nature, receives radio signals. So you can use it to locationally find the source of a signal, and that's emitting a signal. And it basically has a series of antennas on it that moves around, and when it sees the signal, it can differentiate between the strength across its antenna arrays and tells you, okay, it's at the middle of what you're looking at right now. That's the source of your radio signal. Mm-hmm. So if we're not getting something with a passive radar from an object that optical is telling us is up there, then we could switch over to an RF and see, scan it and see if it's emitting any sort of RF. And if it is, can we co-locate it with the visual identifier with respect to location? So we know that this object that's been sighted visually using the optical system also is emitting this signal, and it's, we've located the source of it to be that object. And also, UAP is emitting a 166 gigahertz signal. And so we can tell you, the object that is on this video or recording in the sky is emitting a radio signal that's co-located with the visual object, and it's got a frequency emission of XYZ. So that's the idea behind this passive radar. It's basically just a glorified police scanner, if you want to look at it that way, or 4 or 5 of them gang together in a way that they all can talk to each other and communicate with a computer. So those, like I said, are available for hobbyists. You can buy an SDR that plugs in your computer for $25, just a single one. And people have reported EMF or RF emissions from UAP, UFO. So having one of those that can scan a broad frequency range would be helpful. If you could locate an object in space and time with that signal and correlate them, it would be helpful.
Well, this is kind of what, and a couple of people said it in the chat, this is kind of what Jeremy McGowan's doing with his Osiris.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of that. I have been watching him and his STEM work. I think it's great that he takes his daughter out and lets her interact with that stuff. That's got to be great for a kid, to get to play with. So and I see that as the kind of beginnings of these systems, right? Like, he's doing a more advanced kind of version of the Sky. What is it? Sky Hub, yeah. Mm-hmm. And Sky Hub is
he's done Sky Hub on HGH and
right,
horse steroids.
Right.
He is completely beefed that thing up. By the way, he's going to be here Friday, so we're going to be talking about this.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I'll definitely be in the chat on that. But yeah, so these more advanced systems obviously are going to have to be a little more reliable than the poor Osiris, and hardened and all weather and stuff like that. And those sorts of features drive the price up on things that you get a hardened version of the Osiris that could be left out to function for a year in the field, would probably be 4 or 5 times the cost of what he's put together. So, and the way that the government contractors do things, it's pretty expensive, but you get very reliable equipment that's going to function under,
I always
all
think
sorts of conditions.
like how cool it would be if we had 3,000 or 4,000 Osiris's. But as I sit here and I watch Jeremy work on his Osiris, I'm like, Jesus, dude, like he's constantly updating and improving and new equipment. Like it's a never ending upgrade with that truck. And so I could see how that can start getting expensive, especially as those instruments become more expensive to get, you know? I mean,
right. They're already out there. I mean, he's basically building up on his scale of economy.
Right.
So
exactly.
He didn't start out at, you know, Lockheed level and he's upgrading. He started out at, you know, B&H Photo.
The blueprint is there. You know, like he's got the skeleton of a great
great absolutely
device. And I mean, I'm just like I would love to give something like that a few $1 billion to like really tackle and do it. Not that Jeremy's not really tackling and doing it, but it's like you said, he can only work on the scale that he's given or he has.
Right.
But it's even at that
it's phenomenal.
It's a beautiful instrument.
Yeah.
And I think it inspires a lot of folks to go out and get the data yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Dude, I mean, what I sent you, that proposal came from looking at McGowan's Osiris. I mean, I looked at that. I looked at SkyHub. I looked at, you know, kind of my take on how the government would do things and put that little thing together. and
UFO Blueprint really has it out for you, man. He's like, how does he know about Jeremy McGowan with no social media? You know, Jeremy McGowan has a website.
I don't have to share information to consume
David
it.
is on a computer right now talking, so clearly he's got internet. You know, like it would not be hard to find Jeremy McGowan's website.
I was on the internet with a Mosaic browser, an NCSA Mosaic browser. And before that, I was on the internet with a VAX microstation back in the early 90s. So I am the internet. I mean, and I'm like,
I love it.
Quote of the show.
You know, I'm like, why do I need to put anything out there? It's all for me to consume. I mean, it's my catalog.
It's funny. And I hope that is a sufficient enough answer for you. I am the internet. All right, that's it. Conversation over. So we've got about 15 minutes left. So let's see how much we can get through this.
I have a question.
I have a question, Christina Gomez.
So are there any handheld radio scanners that could cover the 1.66738 gigahertz range? You know, because I'm not knowledgeable about that, and I don't know what's available.
So sure, yeah. I mean, you know, a simple Google search will get you all that.
But you're Google. You're the
internet.
internet.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, right? I mean, I can't do it for you. What is the saying? I can.
You can only lead a horse to water. You can't make it drink, kind of thing.
So you know what I'm saying is, that those devices are out there. You know, a wideband scanner like that would probably cost less than $2,000 for a very advanced one. You know, a handheld one you could get for probably under $1,000 that would, you know, provide you a broad spectrum of scanning, certainly higher than 1.66 gigahertz, which is nothing. I mean, so
let me ask you this: is there any place you could, since you're the internet, can you think of any sort of great resource to find out about technology like that? Maybe a specific website or somewhere you go when you're sort of shopping or thinking about putting these instruments together, other than like Amazon or just Google? You just Google it.
I'm first of all, I mean, the instruments that I would be looking at with respect to capturing data that's usable for me or that I would want to share with scientists. is not going to be on Amazon.
Right.
You're going to get, you know, for instance, one of the things I really looked at was the light, visible light spectrum. And because that's such a common characteristic for these UAPs, and it's so easy to remotely analyze that particular feature, right? So you go out and you look at, on Amazon, you can find what photographers use when they're setting up their studio, a little light sensor, right? And you can get one for $19 that tells you the lumens. How bright is this thing?
Right.
Well, it's used pretty close range, and it's, you know, $12, $19. They got a better one for $200. That's more digital. It has a better sensor. It actually gives you a frequency readout on the temperature of the light and the intensity of it and across the range of visible light. That's still not very useful. You'd have to kind of jam it into the end of an optic and point it at whatever it was you wanted to detect, and then you'd have to do some math on what the optics were, what kind of filters they had, all that sort of stuff. So you're basically hobbying together something that's a kludge, and it's not going to give you anything good.
Right.
You go out to look at sensor cameras, right? Like there's a couple companies, one in Germany, one in Finland, that make high resolution, full or partial bandwidth visible light spectrum analyzers. And those are, you know, 1,000 to 10,000 to 20,000, depending on how much light bandwidth you want to analyze and what the, you know, how sensitive you want it and so forth. So when I look at building a system like that, I'm looking at, you know, those $20,000 sensors, and because that's going to give me something usable other than, hey, here's a picture of a blurred object in the sky that's bright. I need something I can bring somewhere and go, look at this. What does this signature mean, right? So you're trying to collect data, intelligence on this stuff, and you got to have it in a way that makes sense in terms of I can compare it to other things and go, oh, this looks like that, or no, it doesn't look like that, or, you know, and so you're looking at known things in the sky, drones, planes, birds, balloons, and they all produce a signature. You can collect that with this instrument and then collect something that's unknown and do comparative analysis and say, okay, you know, this thing's emitting so much light that it should have a small nuclear reactor in it to power it. How is it staying in the air? What is it? You know, we didn't produce this thing. So if it is a thing that was produced, I mean, we don't even know that. So that's what I'm trying to get, is whatever usable data you could get remotely, remote sensing from these objects, this sort of system would be pointed towards, would be focused on. And that's what the government's going to propose, in my estimation, is, you know, they're going to go through this rigmarole. They're going to come up with this need, identify a requirement. Then they're going to have someone write the requirement down, and it's going to have, you know, we got to collect data within these parameters. We want, you know, speed measurements, size measurements, and light intensity and frequency measurements, EMF, EMR. It starts to look like the military spying on an enemy is what it really looks like, because that's what it is. You're trying to find out something you don't know, and you got to use everything you got to get after it. And that doesn't make me nervous. I'm like, yeah, that's what the government's job is, man. I mean, I'm actually relieved that they're out going after this now and not going, what do we do? I'm like, no, you know,
or just ignoring it, which is
right. pay you to know these things.
Right. That's what we're paying taxes for, is to have them know things and use that knowledge to protect us. I mean, most people want to live a pretty simple life day to day, and they don't want to have to worry about these things that they have no control over. It's just adds to stressors in life that make people unhappy. And so the government is kind of, in a sense, eating that for its citizens. And you kind of follow me, insulating you from that sort of information that would be disturbing to you. And it's not as if they needed you to do anything. If they needed you to do anything to help with that situation, rest assured your phone would ring. It's they're wanting to help their governees, the people that they're charged with governing, feel psychologically safe and secure and know that they're doing their job. You don't have to worry about the guard at the gate because he's up to the task. And so that's kind of my sense on this. There's a renewed effort because in the defense area, there's a large amount of concern about what these devices could be. It's not that we're concerned necessarily they're alien. I think it's more, what are they? Do these things pose a threat to us? And are they manufactured here on Earth in a factory we don't know about, somewhere in, Magneto Gorge or something? I mean, we just don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had the Navy secretary say that it's just they're not a threat. If they were, it would be a lot higher on the importance scale. But because you've got threat of nuclear war in North and South Korea, because you've got apartheid happening in different parts of the world, because you've got, Afghanistan falling down, like these are all things that are real world issues that are affecting mouths that are getting fed, things like that, refugees being displaced. But it's not that they don't know. They see it, they hear about it, it's on the radar, but because it's not posing or flexing as if it's a threat, they kind of just ignore it because they don't have the time for it.
I can see what you're saying with that, and what Dave said about, there are some things that we just can't change, so people don't put that in their mind because they're just stressors. Right. I think that it's so important to have our minds filled with things that maybe we can't change, but to be knowledgeable on, because we are the change when it comes to everything. And if we don't know about it, then nothing's going to change. It's never going to be anything. And so while we're talking about infrared monitoring and cameras, I got this cool little gadget. It's adorable. It's a Psionics Aurora Pro. I mean, it's obviously not as powerful as the Gen 3 night vision. But it works really well. It's I think I was like 800 or something, and it easily goes, the wavelengths from blue are 400 nanometers to infrared, which is about 1100 nanometers. And the more pro version, right, is easily 1,000, which is like $1 million for a college kid. But when we're talking about this, what I'm trying to get at is, even though there's things that we can't change, such as things that we might see in the sky, if them being airplanes or UAP, being able to look up there with whatever equipment we can afford or have on us, changes the narrative of what's going on, and being educated on it regardless.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't disagree with that. I think people should know and be curious. And the benefits that people get from exploring that sort of area and topic with respect to use of technology, I'm a big advocate for that. And I'm like, get yourself a Raspberry Pi, play with that thing, get it tinkered to where you understand how to set up different sensors on it and do that sort of thing. I'm all about that. I just want the context of the information to be taken correctly. And that, it's easy to see one thing or something and interpret it one way and then it not be that way in actuality. I think Alizondo's said that numerous times. You can be absolutely certain and be absolutely wrong at the same time. Yep. And that's kind of the context setting is, don't fear, but be aware and alert and collect and report. And
man, that's awesome. And I think this $5 super chat sort of sums it up. Dave is legit. I saw the look on his face when I was pressing him about White Sands. I won't mention what's in the mountain facilities.
That's good. Don't mention that.
You just did mention.
Oh my gosh! Now we want to know what's in the mountain facilities. Damn,
well, I'll tell you what, Lou. If you ever come out here, I'll take you out there and show you what's in the mountain. Ooh. You'll be highly disappointed.
Yeah, I probably would be, unless of course I was following Angeli. All right, well, Dave Hiss, thank you so damn much for coming aboard and getting weird with us here. This is a great conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. We only got through, I think, 3 of your bullet points here, but hey, come back. Well, let's talk about the rest of them. Sure. And if you're watching on Friday, let me know if you want to pop in and ask McGowan some questions about the Osiris.
Will do. I'd love to talk. I wanted to tweet him. I've wanted to tweet Jazz a couple of things, and I got some cases I want to look at.
Go ahead.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, we appreciate you stopping by, and like I said, if you want to get in on that comment, just hit me up.
I will. Thank you.
Up on Twitter, but you're not on Twitter.
I'll be on there tomorrow. I'll hit you.
Yeah. You've got make sure you come up with a cool handle though. I think, because you got a cool last name, so I would do something with that. I don't. At least one. Maybe I'll email you some suggestions.
Do it.
All right, Dave Hiss. We'll see you soon, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Christina Gomez, have you seen anything through that night vision setup you got there?
Yeah.
Maybe.
What?
No.
I all of a sudden. Don't maybe me on my show.
He doesn't say maybe. He says, we all know what he says. But I haven't seen anything that's like crazy yet. If I did, I would definitely publicize it on social media and be like, dude, check it out after I analyze it, of course.
Okay, I was going to say.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound like Christina Gomez.
Analyzed.
I feel like she'd take it to somebody to look at before she'd post it.
Yeah, because otherwise you'd instantly be classified as someone crazy, and we can't have that.
This is a great name. By the way, if you're still listening, Dave, Spaghetti Lee just came up with a great handle. Don't hiss me off. I think that is perfect. That is perfect.
Amazing.
Don't hiss me off. $5 donation from Pat Calabria. Lugumba, I can't afford to wait 70 years for answers. Support Lou and Mike. I truly appreciate it. I cannot thank you guys enough for all the super chat questions. Harry Reid is going to be on Witness Citizen tomorrow, so go check out, subscribe to his channel. His channel's absolutely blown up. I'm so happy for him. He's really worked his ass off on it, and he's gonna have I think it's gonna be a live interview with Harry Reid. It sounds like. Sean does his shows live. I'd love to see that as a live interview, but maybe it's pre-recorded. Who knows? We'll find out tomorrow. Either way, it's going to be cool because I know Sean always asks great questions, and he's an unbelievable new researcher in this community. And so, if you can, go support him. Did you have something to say, Christina?
I was just going to say, talking about analyzing data. For people that might not know, I started analyzing UFO videos right when my channel started. If you guys are interested to look at possible UFO sightings, check out my channel, near the older videos, of course.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
What is your channel for the folks out there that don't know? Might as well plug it. What do you got?
Well, it is called.
Tell everybody where they can find your stuff, Christina Gomez.
Well, it's called Christina Gomez, my YouTube channel. And my Twitter is called eyes_on_the_skies, where it's the best place to reach me, where I post all of the really cool updates and also retweet some cool stuff, sometimes memes, very rarely, but we all do love some good memes. And
memes make the world go round.
They really do. That and ice cream. Noodles and ice cream from Zero Cool. I agree. Yeah. And then tomorrow for Mysteries with the History, I'm talking about astral projection and out-of-body experience with co-host Jimmy Church. And on Wednesday, I'm talking to Micah Hanks about The Others, which is kind of everything under the umbrella of cryptids.
Can't wait. That's going to be fun.
Okay,
so 2 things here.
School. Yeah. So.
The first is I had a poll. So I'm going to read the poll results real quick. The poll was, what are you most fatigued about in the UFO community? The Wilson Davis documents, Roswell, cattle mutilations, or UFOs made by the Third Reich? With 17% of the vote, cattle mutilations came in last. So I guess people are not sick of hearing about that. The third runner-up, actually, we've got this is like going back and forth between a tie. But so UFOs made by the Third Reich came in third place with 25% of the vote. Roswell came in second place with 26% of the vote. And then the Wilson Davis documents. People are most fatigued about listening to the Wilson Davis documents. And I think I'm right there with you guys. I think that would have been my vote. Do you guys have a vote on today's poll?
I'm interested on UFOs by the Reich. I think that would be interesting to do more research on for sure.
So you want to know more about the Third Reich?
I want to know more about it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I feel like if you talk to Graham, he'd tell you there's nothing there. It's all just a bunch of BS. There's no actual paperwork that goes to anywhere. So yeah, that's why I put that up there. But hey, if Christina Gomez can find some new information, I'd be down to listen to it. By Brian McDonald, $5 donation. Thank you so much. How do I order my Dolphin Emperor autograph shirt? Great question. I have not thought about how to order your Dolphin Empire autograph t-shirt.
Who's autographing it? You or Jazz?
Yeah, that's a great question. Is it me, Jazz, Mike, rather?
I mean, Jazz is the Dolphin Emperor, so
he is the Dolphin Emperor. If there was anybody that should ordain a t-shirt, it should be him. That's a good question. Well, we've been talking about and not this year, definitely not this year, but we're gonna be doing a live version of this show that may tour the country. So if we go to your town, maybe you could come and hang out and join us for a really live version of it. Like we'll have an audience in front of us, which would be cool.
Crazy.
While we're live streaming. So could be cool. It's just something in the works, something we're thinking about. Speaking of things in the works, we did have, what does it say? Christina, hit me up on the cryptos. LOL, seriously, says Bottled Water. You talked to Bottled Water, right? In chat with Alien Girl, am I wrong?
I think so.
You think so? Yeah, you were there. This was like a week ago, not even. What do you mean you think so? Christina,
her life's crazy, man. She can't keep up.
She's sneaky funny sometimes.
I'm barely passing my college class. I gotta write like 10 papers. So I mean all these words in one go. I'm like,
that's fair. That's fair enough. Okay, so we have one more announcement for you guys, and it's a pretty big one. So as you guys know out there, we have a day where we don't have a show, and it's Tuesday because Mike can't do Tuesdays anymore because, again, he's working. He's buying a new house. He's got real world things going down, not like none of us here don't. But we've been agonizing over the last week or so. What are we going to do with this Tuesday time slot? And after much deliberation, I have asked Daniel Miller here to start his own show on Tuesdays under our channel here. So starting Tuesdays, we're thinking, I believe we picked the date of October 12th. So now the pressure's on publicly.
Yeah. Dates out
to put a show together. Daniel, we haven't decided how long the show will be. We haven't decided what it's going to be called yet. We're still working on that stuff.
Yes, very much in development.
Daniel's going to have a real focus, sort of not on just the nuts and bolts and the political aspect of things, but yeah, go ahead, Daniel. I mean, what would you like to focus on?
Yeah, I think, we have a lot of really talented people out there already, really, including the people right here, who are going after the field hard. So I'm thinking, what can I bring to the table? And I'm going to attempt to, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. Try to contact and interview more of the scientific, academic, and journalistic community and try to get their voices in on this topic. Try to hear from perspectives that maybe we haven't seen as often on here, although this show does a pretty darn good job. But I just want to get more grad students, more scientists, more conversations about standards of evidence or what investigating that topic from a more standard of evidence point of view looks like. Today actually was kind of a great episode. I feel like this episode I would love to do on my show. And probably, hopefully, talking about some just stuff about space as well. I'm a huge space nerd, so might as well bring it in there, right?
Yeah,
but we'll see. In development, working on it. So.
I was thinking, it actually came to me in the middle of the show. I'm like, oh, we should just call Daniel's show Miller Time.
It's not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea. I'm pretty sure we can use that. You think
we'll get a cease and desist eventually? We'll see.
We'll see. I mean, there's only one way to find out if we're going to get a cease and desist. That is the
Miller Time.
Yeah, it's nowhere time. There we go. Yeah, we'll just change it to it's nowhere time if we do get a cease and desist. But yeah, that's the announcement, you guys. So welcome, Daniel Miller, to the UCR.
Thank you.
We can't wait
to see
excited. What you produce on the channel. Tina Tomaszewski loves the name. Do it, Miller Time. So that's it, you guys. Just want to say, what happened to my music? What happened?
I don't know.
There we go. I'll just do that. Want to say thank you, of course, to Christina Gomez and Daniel Miller for coming by and helping me co-host today without Michael and Rather here. Truly appreciate you guys being here. Before you go, Daniel, is there anything you'd like to tell the folks out there where they can find your Twitter handle and what's going on?
At SciCop1, SICCOP1. That's where you can find me on Twitter, my musings, my retweets, my whatever. Whenever random UFO thoughts pop into my head, that's where it goes. And there'll be more information forthcoming about the show. Keep your eyes and ears out.
Awesome. Wonderful. And Christina, you've told everybody where they can find your stuff, but you want to tell them one more time?
No, it's okay.
No? Okay.
They heard it. They know who I am.
I miss Christina on this show. Just sometimes your honesty is almost like childlike, where you're just like, yeah, I'm going to tell you how I feel.
Well, I miss being here. I miss being here, so I'm happy to be able to make it because you're such a unique podcaster that no one can compare to you, especially in this topic. You bring the fun, you bring the comedy, you bring the energy, things that we all kind of want without the sugar intake.
Oh, thank you. Nice to know that I'm not as fattening as sugar.
Sugar's amazing. That means you're amazing.
No, listen, I wish I could consume sugar. I pretty much do almost every day. It's unavoidable at this point. But yeah, if I could eat ice cream at the levels that you do, I'd be 4 times as large, which is no good for anybody. All right, you guys. That's enough. We're out of here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFOs. My name's Luis Jimenez. That is Christina Gomez and Daniel Miller, co-hosts for today. Before we go, of course, I want to say thank you to the sponsor, BlueMarlinChronicles.com, purveyors of the world's finest fishing tackle since 1995. I want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the music that you hear on the show. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. Other than that, you guys tune in on Wednesday. We've got NK Kronda coming in. This is going to be a very awesome conversation about abductions. How do we talk about the experiences? What's the best advice that she's got from a clinical psychologist point of view? It's going to be a really, really, really wonderful conversation and sort of our first dive into how to talk about this experience or side of things, because I feel like they need a more amplified voice. I just want to make sure when we do it, we amplify it in the best, most positive way that we can, but also still stay as critical and level-headed as we possibly can. Let's see if it's possible. We'll see. It's an experiment. And then on Friday, we've got Jeremy McGowan. And that's it.
And then on Thursday on the Singularity Lab, I'll be there with Mr. Michael Mataluni and you.
Mm-hmm. I'm always there. Yeah. Oh, you're talking to Daniel?
I'm talking to
me. Will I be there?
I don't know.
I don't think I'm there. Maybe. Actually, no, I'll be out of town. I definitely won't be there.
She's already making lineups for the show. All right, you guys. We love you. We'll see you later. Peace.
Until next time.
Until next time. I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
I believe you're enjoying all this. Indeed, Captain. I've never seen him look so happy.
Shut up!
Shh. Shh. Well, what do you know? I finally got the last word.